steps out of time, from the time when I knew you, Reuben James. Reuben James. All the folks around Madison County cussed your name. Just a no-count sharecropping colored man who would steal anything he can. And everybody laid the blame on Reuben James. Reuben James, you still walk the furrowed fields of my mind. The faded shirt, the weathered brow, the calloused hands upon the plow. I loved you then and I love you now, Reuben James. For a grave, the gossip of Madison County died with child. And although your skin was black, you were the one that didn't turn your back on the hungry white child with no name, Reuben James. Reuben James. With your mind on my soul and a Bible in your right hand, you said turn the other cheek, there's a better world awaiting for the meek. In my mind these words remain from Reuben James. Reuben James.
Good afternoon everyone and welcome. My name is Rhonda Livingstone and I'm a civil celebrant. I have been given the honour of leading this farewell service and on behalf of the family of Kenneth William Barnet, fondly known to you all as Barney, I thank you for coming to his ceremony. Today is an event to honour and remember Barney's life and a way for you all to connect with each other, share your memories and pay tribute to him. Bushlands on the Murray was a favourite location of Barney's, where he could enjoy a relaxing lunch with Cheryl, always a beer and these beautiful surroundings, and hence the reason why his service is being held here today. I would especially now like to welcome loved ones and friends who are attending our virtual service, and thank you for your presence and your support. In such difficult times, live streaming has enabled us to bring you all together, regardless of physical distance and restricted numbers. Before we begin, and just to ensure we don't have interruptions throughout our service, if I could kindly remind everyone to ensure that your mobile phones are now switched to silent. Thank you. As you are all aware, a fine, caring, good-hearted man has now been lost to us. And although Barney is no longer suffering and now at rest, we gather to perform a difficult task, both to mourn and to celebrate his life. And I hope at the end of this ceremony you will feel glad that you took the opportunity to be here, to pay your last respects and share some time in the presence of others who have both known and loved him. All of us are now reminded that the slender thread that joins life with death can so quickly be broken, and that the grieving process which follows is like a roller coaster, full of ups and downs and highs and lows. And like many roller coasters, the ride will be rougher in the beginning, and the lows will be deeper and longer. But remember, heal in your own way, and heal in your own time. The boundaries which divide life from death are difficult to judge, and who can say where one ends and where the other begins? And may there be comfort in knowing that someone so special will never be forgotten. And immediately now we think of those closest to Barney, and especially his wife Cheryl, together for 60 years, and his two daughters Nicole and Melissa. Barney was also the fond father-in-law of Shane and Salvatore, and loving brother of Ian, Peter, Joan and Joy, an affectionate brother-in-law of Robin, Ruth and Ian, as well as fond uncle to his many nieces and nephews. It is important to also remember the very close relationship that Barney shared as a loving pop to Harley, Zoe and Bailey. Today, let us also think of his cousins, and especially Kay, with whom he shared a very close relationship, as well as his brother-in-law Brian, fondly known as Chummy, together with his wife Val. And of course, we think also of all of you, everyone that is here today, and all the people who over the years have been important in Barney's life. Those he enjoyed having a chat with, and those whose company that he always enjoyed. And his kind, caring ways will certainly be remembered by everyone. So throughout our service today, we're going to fashion a mosaic of Barney's life and his character, with poems, his eulogy and character, and many fond family memories. There will be happy thoughts amongst you, sad thoughts, and many recollections. And hopefully when you leave our service, you will take with you a deeper understanding and more personal picture of Barney. Today, the family chose to have a memorial bookmark printed as a keepsake for you all. It includes heartfelt and inspirational words, together with a poem on the reverse side, titled In Loving Memory, Dad, which I would now like to share with you. He never looked for praises. He was never one to boast. He just went on quietly working for the ones he loved the most. His dreams were seldom spoken. His wants were very few. And most of the time, his worries went unspoken too. He was there, a firm foundation through all our storms of life. A sturdy hand to hold on to in times of stress and strife. A true friend we could turn to when times were fun or bad. One of our greatest blessings, the man that we called Dad. And of course, Barney was not only a great dad, and there is no doubt that he and Cheryl shared a wonderful marriage and togetherness and were devoted to each other. They shared many fun social times, family gatherings, and I'm told they enjoyed attending dances whilst courting in their younger days. And it's my privilege to now present a few heartfelt words on Cheryl's behalf. A week ago, my life changed. I lost my love and my best friend. He loved me, and we took care of each other. We will be together again one day. My darling, love always, Cheryl. And of course, for some moments in life, there are no words. And when we lose a loved one, death and grief tend to make us all feel uncomfortable. And although in a practical sense, Barney's no longer part of your lives, death can be regarded as simply shedding our physical bodies, like the butterfly that sheds its cocoon, and a transition then to a higher state of consciousness. Some people believe in afterlife, but none of us really know. And perhaps we can all hope that there is another dimension or place where we will all live on. We know that when plants and flowers shed seeds and the wind and rain carry them to another place, it clearly is the beginning of new life. And immediately now, our thoughts turn to Barney's life and his character. He was a cheerful man, quirky sense of humour, and I'm told could sometimes be quite stubborn. He placed the highest value on his family. He was both a loving and proud dad. His grandchildren became a highlight of his life, and he never missed an opportunity to spend time with them. On a personal level, Barney enjoyed music, loved all sport, especially cricket and football, playing both as a younger man, and was a passionate Tigers fan. His weekends scheduled around watching their matches, and his coffin today, a tribute to this passion. He loved a beer, loved to smoke, and as a younger man displayed a wild, adventurous streak, especially whilst attending Geelong College, more of which we will hear throughout his eulogy. During later years, Barney became more reserved, and he was contented to be at home with Cheryl and enjoy together their wonderful family times. His love and the influence he has had upon his family and their lives have made them into who they are. He never faltered in being true to himself and the standards that he set. And these, of course, are only some of the things you will recall when you think about Barney today. And when we continue to think about his life, there is a bit more to reflect upon. So it is my privilege to now ask his brother Peter to please come forward and share with you his life story, memories of his siblings, together with a tribute from Barney's cousin Kay. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Rhonda. Now, firstly, on behalf of Cheryl, Nicole, Melissa, and my brother Ian, who unfortunately can't be here today because of COVID business, sisters Joan and Joy, we would like to thank those that are here, those that couldn't make it, who maybe are watching this crazy in this crazy COVID times. It was interesting coming today. Our first port of call over the border was the coffee shop, and I got out my phone to, code in or whatever you do, and the guy said, no, that doesn't work in New South Wales. And I'm thinking, well, here we go again. But that's it. That's what we all live in at the moment. A little background on Ken. Firstly, he was great mates with Chummy, Brian, Cheryl's brother, through the footy club. I think Brian was the timekeeper and Ken was the player, and they used to meet at his house after footy and everything, and eventually that's how he and Cheryl met, was round at Chummy's house. Ken was born in Port Fairy on the 15th of June 1943 and moved to Shepparton with our parents in 1946. He went junior school was completed at the Gowrie Street School, and then on to Shepparton High School, and finally a couple of years as a boarder at Geelong College. Probably the wrong finishing school with him. In hindsight, our father thought he would have been more suited to tech school, and I think that's probably correct. But those were the times. So a couple of stories from Geelong College. There are a lot of stories, but I've got a couple. A few of the boys who Ken used to knock around with at school, they found a trapdoor in the floor of one of the boarding houses in the senior house. And on further investigation, they found that it went underground. And so they went down and had a bit of a look, and they came across a heap of tunnels which were obviously, constructed during the war. But they found it pretty ideal for going and having a smoke, perhaps having a game of cards, so that they were out of sight and mind of the teachers, and couldn't get caught. Whilst they decided to put some electrical wiring in down there so they could have electric lighting, and in so doing, they actually blew all the fuses at the school and got sprung. So I think the tunnel was permanently closed down. But it was a good idea while it lasted. Elder brother Ian was a prefect at school during the time Ken was there. They were there together for some time, and Ian tells me he caught him smoking behind one of the buildings one day. Did he dob him in? Well, Ian can't remember, and I guess we'll never know. Coming back home, he played footy with the Shepparton Football Club, of which eventually he became a life member. At his young age, which was early 20s, which was in the early 60s, under coach Tom Hafey, he played in the 63, 64 and 65 premiership sides. One of those players is also here today, I think, one in it, Brian Noonan, so welcome Brian. And he went on to be secretary as well for more than 10 years of the football club. It was about this time he and Cheryl got married in 1965. continuing with Ken's football days, in '67, he, along with Lee Archer and Frank Dahlstrom, went out to Kenneth and played football out there, and they were runner-up in the grand final out there. I think they got beaten by, Jack Archer tells me he thinks it was Blighty, so that could be right. In '68, Ken and Cheryl took over the Katandra West store, and he played football out there for a short while. In actual fact, when I arrived here, I ran into Ron Neleva at the coffee shop, who played with Ken at Katandra, and he said, he told me a story, which I'll relate, that Ken was playing his first game with Katandra, and they thought, we've got this really good player from Shepparton, and they expected he would play a fairly important role in their side. Well, up until three-quarter time, he hadn't touched the ball and he hadn't had a kick. So Ron went over to him and said, listen, Barney, you better have a bit of a crack, otherwise, you know, you come out here as a gun player, you could even finish up getting dropped next week. So, would you want to know? He kicked 6 goals in the last quarter with 6 kicks. So, Ron was telling me that just today. The store had a liquor licence, the Katandra West store had a liquor licence, had a post office, had a grocery section. It was a busy time and long hours. And Melissa had arrived in 1971. I missed a bit before, I think, which could probably happen going through this. But Nicole was born in '67, the year they were playing out of Kinguppa. So, and then in '71, Melissa arrived, so it was pretty full on out the Katandra West store. They sold the store in 1973 and came back to live in Rule Street, Shepparton. I remember a story from when they lived at the residence of Katandra. They had possums in the roof of where they were staying. It was a pretty old place, had a modern shop front and everything, but the old house was pretty old, so they had a few possums in the roof, and I get sick of that. So Ken went out late one night. It was pretty hard to see anyhow. Took his gun with him, and on the roof he saw this thing with his eyes, so he shot it. And he went back inside, and later that morning he heard Mrs. Kirkham next door calling her cat. So what could the poor man do? He couldn't do anything, so he had to do something with the cat. So I think it finished in the channel somewhere in a bag, and Mrs. Kirkham didn't know. Apart from the Katandra years, Ken had other jobs. I remember when I was, I was always younger than him, but when I used to come home, he would be working at Woolworths. He got a job there. He did some training, I think, in Melbourne, and he worked there as a department manager for a start. He worked also at the Shepparton News office supplies, which used to be in High Street, where Cellar 47 used to be, if people remember that. And then he worked at Home Crafts, an electrical goods store at some stage. In actual fact, Ruth and I bought when we got married and moved to Bendigo, we bought our first washing machine, TV and fridge there, and the only one of those that's still going is Ruth. Ken also worked for WD&H Wills. He worked at Orbrells as a rep and did some bar work at the Shepparton Club, which led to him getting a job at the Shepparton Golf Club and being the bar manager out there at the Shep Golf Club for 15 years. In 1999, Ken and Cheryl, with the help of who you know, not what you know theory, they came up to Tocumwal to manage and look after the early settlers motel for Clyde Young, and at a later date, Jeff Gowdy. They really slotted in well up here, and it was the best thing they had done for those 10 years that they were there. They really enjoyed that. They followed on doing some relieving in the motels in the area around Toke, settling into Ingo Drive, where they live now, or where Cheryl lives now. Following on from that, we've got some memories from Ken's sisters. So firstly from Joan, Joan remembers Ken piggybacking her down the steep stairs at the Wyndham Street shop where we were brought up and raised, and falling down to the bottom, and she was about 4 years of age. I'm not sure whether they sustained any major injuries or not, but it would have been a bit of a shock to Joan at that time, I suppose. But that's the sort of prank Ken would do. Trying to teach her to smoke, he would do that, yeah. Lucky she wasn't a bit older, he could have taught her to drink as well. Going to the trots and the races, Joan used to go to some of those venues with him as well. She didn't learn to bet because, again, she was still a bit young. He didn't mind to bet either. She learnt to pick him up from the Sunday morning barrel, which some people would remember those days where that used to exist. I don't know how they would go today, the Sunday morning barrel, but they used to exist, and he taught Joan to pick him up from there at 11, 12 o'clock or something. So it sounds a bit like him, doesn't it? He hit a cow on the way home from a 21st birthday party one time, and it was in Dad's prestige old Holden, which I think the number plate was UY967. That seemed to ring a bell when I read that from Joan's notes. He used to like going to dances in Shepparton and Crowburn, which Rhonda covered before, and his favourite band was the Golden Rockets. Now, for those of you that have memories of the Star Theatre and those sorts of places, I think Jack Edwards might have played in that band, Sid Curtis, maybe even Max North on the bass or something or other, but they were a good old band, and many of us, I'm sure Chummy would remember some of that. Now, Joy remembers, younger sister Joy remembers that he was very good with his hands, making things from wood. He was very good at drawing. He could have been a bit of a sketch artist, which probably follows his mother a bit because she was pretty good at that. He was a good maintenance man, especially at the motel. He and Cheryl were both good dancers, as Rhonda mentioned also, and that's been probably a bit of a lost pastime in today's age. He was a great, at family special occasions, he was a great host, and he would have things really organised, and it was great fun to be around those family days. He taught Joy to drive around the back roads of Shepparton in Edna, our mother's white manual Tirana. He's a very good left-hand table tennis player. And he and Joan were and Joy were in the comps in Shepparton. They used to play at the Shep Stadium. As you will know by now, both Ken and Cheryl are fantastic Richmond supporters. And if you sit at their kitchen table, you will view a lifestyle cutout of Dustin Martin on the wall. Been there for some time. Some of the things I remember, I can remember Ken playing the banjo. Now that's going back a long time. He wasn't very old, neither was I, but I can remember him. I think it was the music teacher was an old fellow called Mr. Young, which is down somewhere in Wellsford Street, which backs under the river there, but he had a double-storey house, and then after school he'd wander down there to learn the banjo. Like a lot of things, parents try and get their kids to play musical instruments when they're young, but it sort of wears out a little bit after a while, and so it didn't take long for Ken to give up the banjo. But he did learn, so he could actually play some sort of a tune. I remember all the match tricks he used to do with matchboxes and matchsticks, and he would do that with the kids, and loading the coins onto his elbow and catching them like that, and he'd load up 24 pennies or something rather than do that. But he used to have the kids in hysterics. And he'd also used to train his Labrador at Evans Court. He had this dog, I think it was called Sam. It was a golden retriever. Not a golden retriever, a golden Labrador, and which they'd had a couple of those. But he trained Sam to eat matches and cigarette butts and all those sorts of things. And he put biscuits on its nose, and it'd sit there until he told it to take the biscuit and would snap and eat the biscuit. So I suppose one of the biggest memories I've got of Ken is waking me up in the middle of the night so we could push Dad's car out the back lane at Wyndham Street, which we did on a number of occasions, and we'd jump in and go for a drive. We went to Seymour one night and had a hamburger. To put some perspective in this, Ken was probably 17 and I was probably 13. Another night we went to Bendigo just because it was in a different direction, but I didn't have a hamburger shop over there. And on the third night, Dad caught us, and it would be fair to say he wasn't happy. That's about all I can say about that, except as I said, I was about 13 and Ken was about 17. He was a funny brother, quick-witted to all of us. He was an excellent cricketer, as you've heard before, both at school and with, I think, Old Students Cricket Club. He's got a bit of paper shuffling to do here. Lastly, before I read something else to you, we're all happy he was here, and our cousin has a final message, which I'd like to read you. She unfortunately couldn't come either because of the COVID. She's in her 80s with her husband, and are lifelong friends of Ken and Cheryl's. Used to come up many times here, and they used to reciprocate down there. So Kay wrote this. So, my Shepparton cousins have always been very special to me. Memories of spending most of the 1950s school holidays in Shep and being upset when I had to leave. Ken and I formed a bond and a friendship which lasted all our lives and extended to our respective partners, Cheryl and Jeff. I remember the long summer holidays riding our bikes all over Shep, going to the newly built Raymond West swimming pool each year, Ken patiently trying to teach me to dive but never succeeding, and then swimming me to the bank where I think he secretly hoped that the leeches would get me. He teased me, laughed at me, but always in good fun. In latter years, as our families grew, they would spend weekends in Melbourne with us. Ken never leaving the house and spending grand final eve watching footy replays all night. He filled in one day for Jeff's cricket team, who always asked, when is Kay's coming back? When is Kay's cousin coming back? So he must have made a bit of an impression down there playing cricket. Likewise, we spent many an Easter in Shep, and then at the motel at the home in Tocumwal, where both of them were always so welcoming and hospitable. Jeff also learned never to interrupt Ken when reading The Sun with his morning coffee. I wouldn't even do that myself. Too many funny stories to relate here, but he reminded both his mother and myself of her brother. That's Kay's mother's brother, whose name was Ern, Kay's father. He could be a rascal, but was unassuming and enjoyed life with a generosity of spirit. Funny and fun-loving, loved a beer, a ciggy, and I think a punt. Like his uncle, sometimes stubborn and pig-headed, but also kind and possessed a wonderful sense of humour. One last story. The night Ken passed, I had a candle burning for him when Joan rang up to give me the sad news. The candle started flickering, and after finishing the call, it went out in a puff of smoke. Illogical, but I like to think it was Ken playing one last humorous joke on me. Ken, I'll miss you for being part of my life, so thank you and farewell from your loving cousin Kay. So thanks very much for that, Kay. She'll be listening, I know. So finally, I'm happy that we could all share part of his life and happy that he's in a better place now. So please hang about for a drink and some more funny stories. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter, for sharing those wonderful memories on your behalf, on behalf of your sisters and cousin Kay. And to continue painting our picture of Barney, it's my privilege to now ask his daughter, Melissa, to please come forward and share with you some fond memories of her dad. Thanks, Melissa.
Dad may not have ended up with the son he originally hoped for all those years ago, but instead was blessed with a tomboy daughter who learnt from an early age that hanging around the football ground every weekend was a normal way of life. My footy passion obviously came from Dad's involvement with the Shepparton Football Club and his beloved Richmond Tigers. Many weekends we would venture to the city with the game at the MCG the main highlight. He was quite proud my treasured possession back then was my black duffel coat with Michael Roach's number 8 on the back. Dad enjoyed me being a sporty girl, with both he and Mum taking me away to netball and basketball tournaments around the state. I'm pretty sure if girls' footy and the AFLW was a thing back then, he would have been quick to have me involved. I remember one particular time seeing Dad in a flustered panic. We're in Melbourne for a basketball tournament, and Dad was driving us to a game with a group of loud, excited 8-year-old girls in the back of his blue Ford panel van. With all the noise and commotion going on inside the car, he realised he'd turned into a service lane towards the oncoming traffic. Mum was yelling, "Can," and Dad was yelling, "Shit, Cheryl, shut up," and he quickly drove up on the median strip of the road to avoid an accident and turn the car around. Another fond memory of Dad and his much-loved panel van was our family road trip to Queensland for a holiday with Val and Chummy and the cousins, the days of no phones or technology, and us kids on beanbags in the back of the van. No seatbelts, they weren't required in those days, sitting in the back, and we had our snacks and music, puzzles to keep ourselves occupied. And to comprehend that nowadays, on ever making that kind of road trip with your kids in the back on beanbags and no seatbelts seems horrifying, yet it is one of my greatest memories of the good old days. Some of Dad's favourite sayings that I remember were, "Be brave, be strong, stick to your guns, you have the guts to do it, give it a crack. Sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind." And I think he kept telling himself this when he made me stay at the table for hours on end for not eating my veggies, and it was a battle of the wills who was going to give in first. I didn't mind, as I could see the TV from where I sat, and I quickly learnt after about 3 hours he'd eventually let me go as it was bedtime. He'd also say, "You may think you're smart, but I'm always one step ahead." And this saying reminds me of the time I was about 14 and Dad bluffed me into confessing I had been smoking cigarettes. I didn't register that at the time. Dad was a heavy smoker himself, so highly unlikely he would have smelt smoke on me. However, he cornered me after a night out skating and said, "Melissa, have you been smoking? I can smell smoke on you." I denied it a few times, but eventually caved, saying, "So what? Yes, I had a go." Well, he then decided to teach me a lesson. He sat me at the kitchen table, gave me his cigarettes and lighter and said, "Okay, light up and show me how you do it." So I lit up thinking, okay, this is all right. And he makes me draw back on the cigarette more and more. And after one, he says, "Have another," and lights it up for me and passes it to me. So he keeps me going until I start to feel extremely sick. And I can honestly say since that day, I haven't touched another cigarette ever. Last week, when sitting with Dad out at the respite centre, he surprisingly said to me, "Melissa, do what you want to do in life." I'm so grateful I got to spend last week by Dad's side. He reminisced about the years he played in 3 Shepparton senior grand finals on the half-back flank, he kept telling me, and then he got dropped from another, as in his words, he played like shit. He may have been seeing things that I couldn't see or talking to a few people that I couldn't hear, but the bond of just listening and being caught up in his world at that particular time is a special moment I will never forget. But the most important words I will always remember from Dad are, be brave, be strong, and in particular, do what you want to do in life. And perhaps then we should all take that piece of advice from Barney. Thank you. Love you, Dad.
Thank you so much, Melissa. We're now all going to pause for a moment of quiet reflection on the journey of this remarkable man and turn back some of the pages of his book. Whilst now listening to the reflection music, think about the time and experiences you have shared with Barney the trials and the triumphs, the pain and the joy, and may your affection and respect for him continue to shine in your lives. The accompanying song by Kenny Rogers was chosen in memory of Cheryl and Barney's journey through life together.
I can't remember when you weren't there, when I didn't care for anyone but you. I swear we've been through everything there is. Can't imagine anything we've missed. Can't imagine anything the two of us can't do. Through the years, you've never let me down. You've turned my life around. The sweetest days I found with you. Through the years, I've never been afraid. I've loved the life we've made, and I'm so glad I stayed right here with you through the years. I can't remember what I used to do, who I trusted, who I listened to before. I swear you've taught me everything I know. Can't imagine needing someone so, but through the years it seems to me I need you more and more. Through the years, through all the good and bad, I know how much we had. I've always been so glad to be with you. Through the years, it's better every day. You've kissed my tears away. As long as it's okay, I'll stay with you through the years.
And in those future days ahead, remember that it is healthy to quietly reflect, and that reliving your memories aids in healing and closure. Thinking about Barney and being able to laugh about old photos and moments with your loved one signals just how important their presence was in all of your lives. Our family tree provides a link with our past and with the past of our parents, uncles, aunts, grandparents. They represent the history and survival of all of our families, and Barney was a strong branch of his family tree. As a special tribute to him, I would now like to share with you a reading chosen by the family titled A Fallen Limb, an extract of which is on the front of your bookmark. A limb has fallen from the family tree. I keep hearing a voice that says, "Grieve not for me." Remember the best times, the laughter, the song, the good life I lived while I was strong. Continue my heritage, I'm counting on you. Keep smiling and surely the sun will shine through. My mind is at ease, my soul is at rest, remembering all how I truly was blessed. Continue traditions, no matter how small. Go on with your life, don't worry about fools. I miss you all dearly, so keep up your chin until the day comes and we're all together again. There is no doubt that Barney will live on and forever be tied together within his family circle, and the younger generation will carry on with some of his talents, skills and traditions passed down to them. And as our next tribute, I would like to say a few words on behalf of Barney's daughter Nicole and her family, who sadly were unable to attend today, also due to COVID restrictions. Firstly, from Nicole. To my beautiful dad, you are now at peace with the angels and will be dearly missed but loved and remembered every day for your smile, laughs, ship stirring and your great taste in music. Music always been a passion of mine as we appreciated similar tunes. You held me when I was young. Now I am holding you forever, in my heart and eternally. Love from Nicole. And secondly, from his grandson Harley. To my beloved Poppy, I'll always remember you no matter what. All the advice and guidance that you've given me throughout life has helped me make the person I am today. You being there for Nan and all your family throughout life's ups and downs have always assured me that we will get through it even at the worst times. I will always remember you, Poppy, and all the memories we shared together. You'll forever be in my heart. Rest in peace, Poppy. Love forever and always, Harley. And thirdly, his granddaughter Zoe. My dearest Poppy, you made me laugh every time we spoke over the phone while I was growing up. You would always ask me, have you got a boyfriend yet, Zoe? I will forever miss seeing you laugh and smile. So until we meet again, may you rest in peace. Love you always, Zoe. And finally, Shane's words, Barney's son-in-law. Good day, Ken. You're one of the most Australian blokes I've come across. Love to be here in a good chat, and I'm forever grateful for meeting your beautiful daughter, Nicole, and from your blessings on me. May you forever rest in peace. We'll have a beer when we meet again. Much love, Shane. We've had some beautiful tributes today, and I'd just like to thank all those, especially those who aren't here and are watching our virtual service. Thank you for speaking bravely and openly about Barney. I know everyone appreciates it. As we all know, a grandparent is special. A little bit of a mum or dad, a little bit of a teacher, a little bit of a best friend. So in her Pop's honour, I would now like to ask his granddaughter Bailey to share with us some of her memories. Thanks, Bailey.
So I'm sure as many of you know, my pop was a man of few emotions. So today I'm not going to be talking about how much I love and miss him, that's a given, but rather I'm going to share some of my favourite funny memories of Pop. For as long as I can remember, Pop used to thrive off mischief. So anything that my mum or my nan would probably yell at me for, he'd be proud of. When Nan and Pop used to come and stay, it wasn't long before he'd get me going to see how many times I could yell mum before being yelled at. So mum, mum, mum. He loved that. As a kid, school holidays were always spent at Nan and Pop's motel. It was a balance of getting all the jobs done while entertaining a hyperactive child. I remember one day, Pop was trying to get all the mowing done, which could take hours, yet he still found a way to keep me entertained though. In his words, practicing my running. This consisted of me running from him on the mower to the fridge and back to get him a cold stubby. On another school holidays at the motel, it was organised that I'd spend the morning with Pop while Mum and Nan were out, and that I'd go out in the afternoon with Nan. So as it went, I spent the morning with Pop following him around the motel, and then I headed off with Nan on my outing. The first stop, though, was the bakery, and we hadn't been there long, and I'd only had a few sips of Big M when I suddenly become disgustingly sick in the bakery. When we got home early and Nan was explaining to Pop what happened, he just sat there with this sheepish kind of look on his face, and then decided it was best not to mention the fact that he'd let me eat a whole bag of 17 Chubba Chups not long before we went out. For years, everyone thought I was lactose intolerant. One of my Pop's favourite foods was oysters, and he could easily throw back a dozen in a sitting. Being a vegetarian most of my life, I'd obviously never eaten any seafood. So on a night out, Pop decided to pay me $50 if I would eat an oyster. And of course I said yes, because $50 is a lot of money for a little kid. One thing he forgot to tell me though, was that you're not supposed to chew it. So there I was in a restaurant, madly chewing on this disgusting thing, trying to swallow it, trying not to gag, but I was determined to get my $50. I ended up spitting it back out on the plate, and I never got my $50. Then there was a raw potato incident. I know there's a bit of a trend going here. Through about after, Pop had tried to convince me that you could eat a raw potato just as you would an apple. Of course I tried, but this didn't last very long, as Nan put a stop to it pretty fast. As we both got older, I don't know if he got more funny or I was just able to appreciate it more. When I was 15, I got caught wagging school, and unbeknownst to everyone, I actually hadn't been to class for a whole term. Everyone was quite mad, so when Pop started to approach me, I was expecting I was going to get a serving. The only thing he asked me though was what I did while I was wagging, which I went on to tell him I either sat at the front bus stop or I walked to Macca's down the road for the free Wi-Fi. His response was, "Bailey, if you're going to put in that much effort, you need to make it at least worthwhile." He then went on to tell me how he used to climb out his second-story window at boarding school, slide down the rainwater pipe, and go off to play pool to make some money, so my efforts weren't that impressive. Just as he did with my mum, Pop loved coming to watch me play in netball tournaments. One particular grand final, Pop thought he'd give me some words of wisdom at half-time. His words were, "Bailey, you're a shooter. You only have 2 defenders to take down in the ring, and a stray elbow to the head never killed anyone." Even just last week, as he was beginning to get a bit sicker and a bit more confused, he still had his wits about him. Mistakenly, he asked me how my husband was. I thought I might be able to pull one over him here, so I replied that my famous AFL husband, Dustin Martin, was great. Without even missing a beat, he looked me straight in the eye and told me I was full of shit. I've saved my best memory until last. In the past few years, Pop would always be the one encouraging me to drink, have a beer. So breakfast on Christmas was usually started with a beer. Last year, he even started me with a whiskey next to my bed. I wasn't sure if he enjoyed getting me tipsy, or that he knew that once I had a drink, he could have one too without being yelled at. The Christmas just gone, we were all sitting around Nan's table having lunch, cracking bonbons and sharing bad jokes, when Pop waved at me with his finger to come here. Now, I knew this was going to be a good joke because he didn't have the guts to say it to the whole table. And man, he didn't disappoint. So this was his joke. What does your Nan and Hitler have in common? His response: they're both always yelling and they both have a bit of hair on their upper lip. I just want to clarify that neither of those things are true. But that just sums up the type of person he was. And I can't believe there's not going to be any more Christmases like this. Pop, last Sunday, when your heart stopped, my heart broke. And I don't think it'll ever be the same again. Nor do I want it to be. I'm so grateful that I got to spend your last moments with you. And I hope you know that I'll always love and miss you.
Thank you so much, Bailey, for sharing those wonderful and funny stories about you and Pop and moments together. He would be very proud of you today. And it's not easy to stand up here in front of everyone. As you all know, Barney also loved his sport, and as our final tribute today, I would like to present an acknowledgement from the Shepparton Football Netball Club. Good morning, members and supporters. Some sad news received yesterday with the passing of former Premiership player, past Secretary and Life member, Ken Barnet at the weekend. The club would like to acknowledge the contribution that Ken made over many years, and our sincere sympathy goes out to his immediate and extended family. Ken played in reserves Premiership and 3 senior flags. He was a great bloke and terrific company. We had as much fun off the field as on it, and he will be sadly missed. Another wonderful tribute. So today, we have all stopped the onrush of our lives. We have paused to reflect upon Barney's life. His health had been declining for the past 6 months, and he was admitted to Finley Hospital on several occasions. He also experienced the onset of dementia, endured pneumonia, and suffered a couple of falls. Barney was initially admitted to Finley Regional Care for 2 weeks respite, but unexpectedly passed away there, peacefully surrounded by his loving family on the 10th of October, aged 78 years. Sometimes death can be a gift, perhaps a blessing, and a ceasing from struggle as sleep can be. And for Barney, this departure was in part a release from his ill health. On behalf of the family, I would like to offer special thanks to both the hospital and aged care staff for taking wonderful care of him, always treating him with respect and dignity. Special thanks are also extended to Dr. Mohan for his ongoing care and support throughout Barney's illness. Today, for everyone, has been a mixture of sorrow and joy. Sorrow at the time ahead without Barney, and joy to reflect on the memories that he has left us all. This man was special, and today we have honoured his life of 78 years. And to conclude our service, I would now like to ask those who wish to please join with me in saying the Lord's Prayer. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, for ever and ever. Amen. Here now in this final act, we tenderly and reverently commit the body of our dear friend Barney to the elements of cremation, from which all life comes, and in the end all life returns. Earth to earth, dust to dust, and ashes to ashes. Barney is no longer bound by this world, ready for his spiritual journey, and reunited with other family members who have gone before. We all leave him in peace and with respect, bid him farewell. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That does conclude our service today for Barney. And on behalf of the family, they would again like to thank you for your presence, for the love and support shown to them all at this very difficult time. They invite you to join them for refreshments and have a beer for Barney here at the Bushlands Cafe, and extend special thanks to all staff, Craig, Claire, Bianca and Di, for their understanding and support throughout the funeral arrangement. So let us all now go in peace, and may we be a comfort and support to each other, open to the healing power of all of your memories, and continue to always value the very precious gift of Barney's life. Thank you all once again for your attendance. Our final music tribute is by John Denver, to be followed by a song that was always very close to Barney's heart. And hopefully when you hear either piece of music in the future, you'll be reminded of Barney and all be able to smile. Thank you all once again for your attendance here today.
Well spoken.